Hey there, and welcome to Money and You. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. My search for more fulfilling work led me to career and business coaching, where I stumbled upon a game changing discovery. Money issues often start with our mindset and habits. You see, our relationship with money is the key to overcoming those frustrating financial obstacles. As an entrepreneur, coach, and problem solver, I'm passionate about helping you create a great relationship with money. Because, turns out, that's the foundation for a limit-free life. Each week on Money and You, I speak with amazing guests about all things money, mindset, practical tips, and everything in between. We're here to give you new insights, education, and empowerment so money can be one of your favorite relationships. So join us for some lively conversations and let's transform your financial life together. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Money and You Show. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host, and I'm going to do a solo show today. So, no guest, just me, and I have something I want to talk to you about that I've been going through, and I thought maybe I would just share because, for better or worse, I'm kind of an open book. Um, I have had this real estate investment project going for the last 3 years. And I know I brought it up a long time ago. And we're at the tail end. I think we're about to sign a deal. Not a good one, by the way. So I wanted to bring this up and just share with you some of my experiences. I wasn't a total novice at this, but novice enough with the type of thing that I got into. So I've had other properties that were much more kind of basic, like, a home that I had lived in and then I moved into something else and I kept it and rented it. Or I did buy a condo for investment from a developer friend of mine, kind of, knew the inside scoop on that. And then that was right. I bought that in 2006, and then we had all the fun in 2000, 8 and 10 and on, and that really kind of took a dive. I've had other properties. I'm gonna tell you kind of a global statement around the properties I've had in the past, which have been a number of them. In retrospect, I wish I'd kept all but one, um, and, just not sold them. I mean, if I'd had the choice, that's what would have been, good to do. Even the one that I really tanked in 2000, 8-ish, that one I got rid of as soon as the value came back up to the point where I could pay off the mortgage, and I waited many years for that, so it had gone so low. So I thought I was being smart doing that in retrospect. Of course, now it's probably doubled and could have been a good idea to have kept that one. Um, so I am not the most sophisticated at this. I have had many, many guests on the Money and You show who have talked about serious large scale real estate investing of all kinds. And I wish I'd thought to do this before, but I will put some in the show notes, just reference to some real experts in this field. I am not, I am a total dabbler. Um, but this was a bigger project than anything I had embarked on before. And I really learned a lot. I mean, it was I'm not making any money. I am taking a loss on this, but I am going to go ahead and get rid of it. It's one that you could probably argue you should keep. It will appreciate, it'll do all the things, but I don't want the burden of it. It's a more luxury home and paying for repairs and things will be a lot. I know some things that are due to be needed, a new roof, things like that in the future. So could I do it? Yes. Would there be ways to finance these things? Yes. Do I want to at this point in my life? No. But that was hard to get to because financially you could definitely make a case to keep it. Absolutely. I mean, financially you could make a case to do a lot of things that I'm not doing. So that's, kind of conundrum number one is that this will come up in your life with many things too. Financially, it might make great sense to take a certain job that your gut is telling you you're not really into, or to move for a job, or you know, all kinds of things. So it's a really, I think it's very challenging to make decisions um not based on financial progress or growth or, wins. Um and sometimes we do that. Sometimes we just, as my friend said, just have to take a loss. And but it's a decision that you have to make, and you have to think about, and you have to weigh a lot of different factors, and then you have to accept it. Then you have to get okay with it, because hanging on to that, I don't think there's anybody who's ever bought property who doesn't have these sad stories about that condo in Waikiki that was, $75,000 40 years ago or whatever it is. We all got them. But there's a level of acceptance that comes, or that you need to allow in, when you decide you're going to lose money. If you're making that decision to lose money, there would be ways to hang on and try to make money still. I think this is one of the most important sort of psychological mindset things that come up in any investing is, when do you get rid of something, and why and how? And financially, it is a risk. It's all a risk. So whether it's stocks or real estate or whatever it is, you can't know, and that's where it gets really tricky. Like, could we not take this offer that isn't very good, put it back on the market? Yes. How long would we have to wait for the next buyer? Total unknown. What's that buyer potentially going to be like? And can they qualify for everything? Will they be okay with all the reports that have already come in on this house? Don't know. So when the don't knows and the unknowns are just a little too much, then you have to make a decision. And so you can go that route. There is, again, this is the real kicker, is there's no right or wrong. There's just your decision. And I think, as far as mindset goes, we have to get really comfortable with making decisions that, we might regret at some point, or we might look back on and think, I could have made another decision. I mean, when I look back on this house, I could spend all day, every day, thinking, I could have done this, I should have done that, but it's in the past at this point. And so it's really important to let it go. And this just becomes a great learning experience. Like, I don't feel like I'm forever done with real estate because of this, but boy, would I do things differently. And so some of those things I want to share with you, because these are things, when I say them, I think it's going to be super obvious. And it's like, well, why wouldn't you have done that? And I can ask myself that same question. But what happens in real life is that circumstances come up and other people are involved. And sometimes we're just, convinced of something, or we're persuaded by someone, and we let certain things go. And I think it's just such a good lesson in, being a real strong business person when you go into something like this, even if you're going into them with family or friends or people that you trust because of whatever reasons. And there's so many real estate stories that don't end well, that were based on some level of trust. And I hate to say that, because it's wonderful to trust. I hope people trust me. Um, but I thought to myself, I trust the process, or in the end, this is kind of my hindsight, but I trust the process, but I don't necessarily trust the people, because the things that come up are things that the people I know may have not been up against before. So what kind of decision do they make? I don't know. I mean, I've been around certain people, under certain circumstances, making certain decisions, and I sort of know how they would go. When new circumstances and new decision making comes up, you can think you know a person, but the way you would go and the way they would go might not be aligned, which is a huge deal with money anyway. It's a huge thing with partners and money, is to realize that, oh, I know this person and I trust them in so many aspects of life. But when it comes down to being in business with them, or sharing, money in some way, even for spouses or partners, um, there'll be surprises. And I think it's okay. I just think you should prepare yourself for that. And I should have prepared myself better for the idea that this was all new. I didn't, there were people involved who I knew well, and there were people involved who I didn't know well. But I was trusting the people I knew well, who seemed to trust the person I didn't know well. And it never felt good. I always had a bit of a pit in my stomach, and I was the one always asking, because I am kind of a finance person. I was always asking for documentation. Can we have agreements? Can we have signed off budgets? Can we have, things, authorizations and change order systems? And I wanted to do it that way. I got talked out of it in many cases because the experts were out there doing their creative expert thing. And, my asking for these things was sort of frowned upon and looked as something that was getting in people's way. And so that was informative. I was right about the way I was feeling on that one. And so my first recommendation to anyone doing this is, regardless of whose feelings get hurt or whose egos get bruised or whatever, or what the relationships are, go into it as a business. I mean, we set up an LLC for this. This is a business. And yet we were treating it very casually and in the way it played out. And that gives a lot of opportunity for people to go in directions that don't make sense to you and to maybe spend money in ways that you wouldn't have okayed had you had a chance to do so. So, you know, situations like this involve, mine in particular involve partners. And whether it's real estate or any business, partnerships are really interesting. Even roommate situations are interesting. And I feel like dynamics can go very wrong um, in that situation. Again, when you haven't dealt with them on that level, or even just, as something progresses. So at the beginning, everybody might agree, let's do this, let's do that. This is how we want to see it. This is the vision. But the details are what matter. We all went into this with the same vision. Some of us had to be, talked into the idea that the vision could play out, but we went into it with the same vision. But along the way, things happen. And then who is going to make those decisions about which direction we go? Are we all going to agree? Is one person in charge? These are the kinds of things, and if we don't agree, what the heck are we going to do? That's the biggest question. And you need to ask yourself that, whether this is something like a real estate deal like we were in, or whether it's a business partnership. People are very um, easygoing when it comes to getting into these partnerships. It feels like support. It feels like probably sharing financial responsibility. It feels like it's going to be really good. But, you really have to, and you feel almost disloyal, kind of, especially if it's friends going into this, or people who are close. So it doesn't feel good to start thinking, well, I better lay out every possible scenario and figure it out in advance in case. But I think the outcome is much worse when you don't do that. It might feel bad. It's almost like having a prenup. Like, it might feel icky at the time that you sign that. But if you don't do that and you wait and things go south, the outcome is gonna be far worse. I mean, it's gonna be people never speaking to each other again, and money lost, and hard feelings, and all of that. So I do understand now the value of laying all of this out at the beginning, and even if people get ruffled, the outcome is likely to be better. So, the whole idea of who you partner with, how you partner, and how you lay the rules out and make sure everybody's on board. That's the other thing. You can lay out all the rules you want and think everybody is following them and understands them. But they may have just signed off without really giving them any thought. So I think regular discussions about this and regular meetings, and if you're the one who wanted the rules, you got to hold people to them. They're going to go, do their thing. And if you act like it's okay for them to make decisions that should have been discussed or whatever it is, then they're going to roll with that. And that's kind of on you. I feel like that was kind of on me. I should have called everybody to the table, like 25 different times and said, okay, we're going to stop until we get some things figured out. And instead, the ball kept rolling and the whole thing kept moving. And oftentimes, the budgets got adjusted up and up and up. The timeline went longer and longer. Times changed. The real estate market actually was very different 3 years later from when we started, although we never thought we would be doing this for 3 years. So many, many unknowns. Again, unknowns are expected. They're okay. We should plan that they will show up all over the place. But we still, there's this funky, weird, fine line between being too fear-based and being more realistic and planning for scenarios that might go bad. It it's tricky for people like me who really do believe in universal law and the energy and the universe and all of the underlying factors that create intentional lives and abundance with not being naive and not planning practically for some realities. So that's always kind of like a balancing act for me. But one thing that an energy coach who I really admire said to me was responsibility is the most important thing. So, responsibility for something, for a project, for instance, trumps feeling good or being positive or any of that. So, if you're feeling some negative feelings around something and you're worried that's creating sort of a negative vibe, being responsible is the highest level that you can attain here. So it'd be great to be full of love and all of the good things, but if you have to do things out of a sense of responsibility to make sure that everybody's winning and the project is going well or whatever, that's actually where you need to go. So I thought that was very interesting. So a few things about this particular property. So we chose to invest in something in the Hollywood Hills. It was a very lovely, desirable location. But as my realtor told me, my third realtor, um, this is not a good place for a new investor, or somebody who doesn't have like a many, many investments. So there's plenty of resources to share in to start out in the hillside homes in an area that has fires and everything else is probably a much riskier sort of thing to take on. It's harder to sell, fewer buyers are interested in that area. And so, there were many factors, but her point really was, why did you do this? Like, why wouldn't you have bought a nice family home in some place that is desirable and made it simple? Why are you doing this like architectural hillside home on a budget? And then after she was asking me those questions, I was like, that was a pretty big endeavor for people who, you know, weren't that familiar with the area. Somebody in the project was. And so again, there was that trust factor. So, okay, that's something that, just if you're doing this, know the outcome that you want, know why you're doing it, and then try to connect that with the actual project you're doing. Because there was some like, oh, the aesthetics were amazing and the location is amazing, but is it good for an investment property? It'd be good if we had wanted to live there maybe, but things were not, lined up properly for the outcome that we wanted, which was really just, a financial win, and we also changed course in the middle of it and went from doing a small remodel and creating a rental property to creating more of a spec house, and, um I would say we lost our initial goal along the way, and the subsequent goal was less realistic. Anyway, it could have happened, and we could still wait and see if it could still happen. So, you don't really know, but I'm just thinking back, I would listen to more experts, I would speak to more realtors and people in the know before I got into this. I wouldn't I wouldn't just listen to a single person who had a design idea and a really good one. I would talk to people who actually sell homes in the area that you're looking to sell, multiple people, and get a better read on what the market is really like at any given time. Um, Also, this is a job. This is what I learned. It takes time. And if you are the main person overseeing the money, the construction, the timeline, all of that, which I was, um, this is more of a job than one would think. So more time involved, more energy involved. And even with the way I did it, devoting a fair amount of time to it, I still didn't take control over the construction aspects that I should have. I should have this was all approved by the city, which was, kind of, amazing, and we had many, many inspectors come out. I should have been there for those in retrospect. I should have been more on the job site. I know a lot of people who do this who are there all the time, and I, again, trusted somebody who had done many of these homes that he was on the job site all the time. Maybe. A lot came up in the end that made it look like he wasn't. So he was leaving a lot of things up to a crew that needed oversight. So, yeah, we also did an inspection up front before, before buyers were really coming in, to make sure we want to know what an inspector would say because any buyer is going to get an inspection done. And so, very good report from this particular inspector who came in. And then buyers started coming in and doing their own reports, and we saw some brand new things. So that was also interesting. You get a lot of opinions, you get a lot of ideas, and you get a lot of data points that later accumulate. You have to disclose them. And so future buyers are seeing an awful lot of information that they have to take in to make a decision, and it actually becomes much more complicated. But just as a summary idea, if I were to do it again, I would have been out there watching the workers to some extent, not every minute, but seeing what they were doing, asking more questions. I'm such a question asker, and it drives my children crazy. I get a lot of lectures about it, but my clients like it. That's my job. And also on something like this, I always advise people ask a lot of questions. Ask your accountant and your financial advisor and all the people in your life helping you with your money a lot of questions. And I was really remiss on this one. I felt the way a lot of people feel with their financial people. I felt sort of out of my depth, like, what do I know about construction and why ask? Because I won't know if it's right or not. But asking the questions of people gets them to feel like people are paying attention to the job they're doing, and you can get a lot of information from the actual workers, I found out after the fact, versus the person overseeing the project who also has a financial interest in the project. So create make it a job, show up, let them know that you are present and watching and looking at things and actually gain the knowledge. Like ask the questions you need to ask so you understand what's going on with your house so you don't have surprises. And then yeah, I think those were the main things. Again, trust the process, but don't necessarily trust the people. Not because you don't trust the people, but don't trust the people to make the same decisions you would make, to operate in a way that you would expect, to share everything with you, and, to not change their minds. So it's a really I think it could be an absolutely great way to go. I am I am not taking away from this the idea that, oh, real estate's too hard, real estate's not good, real estate's, I still think it could be fun, way more fun than what this one was. And it could be really, really lucrative and satisfying. And I totally get why people get really into it. And maybe you have to make some mistakes, to learn the ropes. But um, I would definitely treat it like a business, be serious about it, enjoy it, but remember your outcome, remember your plans, keep people in check, and really be budget conscious. it is very, very easy for money to run out the door on these projects. And somebody has to be there reining it in. And if you find that nobody is doing that, then you got to step in and do it and see, make decisions. And anybody who's involved in a project like this who feels like they're being left out of the decision making, or people are going to be making decisions they don't like and somehow just getting away with it, that is not a pleasant position to be in. And you need to, if there are red flags in that regard, you need to follow your gut and you need to show up. And, you know, these partnerships are tricky. So be very, very careful who you get into business with. That's our show today. I hope you took something away. It was a lot of rambling on my part, but I did learn a lot. And, if you're doing something with real estate right now, or you're just wanting to save for your first house or whatever, if you have questions, and I think this is another thing that happens, just like it does with all things money, you may just feel uncomfortable asking people the questions that you have. You might feel like these are weird questions or silly questions or ignorant questions. Who cares? Just ask them because you need answers to do this properly. So again, I have a virtual coffee chat on my website, limitfreelife.com. You can go there, you can click on the link, book a time with me, and we can just talk it out. That's all that call is for. I'll buy you a cup of coffee, send you a Starbucks or whatever gift card. I don't like Starbucks. I can find something else, and just ask a question. Let's have a chat. I wish I'd had a lot more chats, and not felt like I should just follow the experts. So you become an expert. That's the key, and you can do that in today's world. You become an expert in a lot of things pretty easily. So thanks for listening, and yeah, we'll see you next week. We have two guests coming up, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. Okay. Bye bye.